Hello, Gamecock fans. I'm Spencer Ball.
I'm JP Barry. Welcome to Ball Don't Lie, SGTV's premier live sports show.
And JP and I will be giving you our weekly insight every Friday.
This week on the show, we'll be previewing Super Bowl 59.
And later, NBA trade deadline drama and even more college hoops coverage.
Be sure to stick around for head-to-head pick'ems.
And without further ado, welcome to Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome to the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
If you are a person in the Carolinas with functioning legs and a football jersey, please report to Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte.
We watched Ice Bryce Young do his thing and lead the Panthers to their second win of the season.
I think Matthew McConaughey and Dabo Swinney are very similar. I feel like maybe one day McConaughey could play Dabo in a movie.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that love seeing Clemson lose.
This is just what football is about, man. Two teams that run the football, play defense.
That guy's Superman sometimes, dude. We've got to pick the Yankees, otherwise I'd be kicked out of my own family.
Yankees.
It's time. Is it time?
I think it's time.
This is Ball Don't Lie.
In just 2 days, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to duel it out in New Orleans for the Lombardi Trophy. This is Super Bowl 59. Spencer, it's weird because, like, I'm not doing a bit, I swear. I keep forgetting the Super Bowl is this weekend.
And, I feel like it's much more reasonable when you consider the NBA trade deadline, which, of course, we will cover later. But it has been a hectic week for other sports, but I think the attention is shifting back towards football for the end of the weekend. You've got the biggest game of the NFL season this Sunday. It's a rematch of Super Bowl 57, again, which we'll talk about in just a bit. But it's Chiefs-Eagles, again, two of the best teams all year long. And it feels like the Lions, had a lot of injuries. So I think as of right now, I think these were the two best teams in the postseason. They've played like it, all year long. And I think it's going to be a fun game. I've definitely come around a little bit. I was just, in denial. I was like, oh, Chiefs-Eagles again. Oh, no. But it was a really fun Super Bowl last time. And I think these two teams should make for an interesting game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. Like you said, two of the best teams in the league, and it is just kind of like you're like, oh man, these guys. But like at the end of the day, you want a good game in the Super Bowl, and hopefully we get it. And it was a pretty good time the last time they matched up, Spencer.
It sure was. If you feel like you've seen it before, you absolutely did. Just 2 years ago, the Chiefs bested Philly in Super Bowl 57. Let's revisit what happened that night in Glendale. And again, it was the Chiefs, as they typically do, with a narrow victory, 38-35. Patrick Mahomes had a really efficient game, 3 touchdowns. But a big play of the game came when Nick Bolton had a fumble recovery for a touchdown on Jalen Hurts. Outside of that, though, JP, was this the best game we've seen from Jalen Hurts? At least when the lights are on?
Well, it was really, really good. But then I think maybe the worst final heave in Super Bowl history where he dropped back like 18 steps and then did like a 7-step through, put all his weight into it. And it was like Charlie Brown, went like 30 yards. I almost felt bad. I was like, Jesus. But it was a great game. They just really struggled to run the ball. I think that's what's very different this year, Spencer.
It certainly is. You go from having like Miles Sanders, Boston Scott in your backfield to upgrading to, the best running back season we've seen in the longest time. It's Saquon Barkley who's putting together just a monster campaign in the postseason and throughout the whole regular season. They've definitely improved in that regard. But one thing to note from that game, the Eagles' front seven was really excellent in Super Bowl 57. Or that season, but in the Super Bowl, no sacks on Mahomes. They've really mastered the art of getting the ball out quick, and they know how to navigate man coverage whenever you're sending the blitz at them.
Yeah, but we talked about Saquon. That's what the Eagles are a little bit different. But it's not just in the run game. They're really good on defense, and they got some new faces. In fact, you could even say their front four is criminally good. They get after the passer really good. You got Nakobe Dean. Reed Blankenship has been really good on defense for them.
Nakobe Dean, unfortunately, injured for this one.
Yeah, but, that's a big issue. The Chiefs, remember, Fred Warner last year? Dre Greenlaw?
Dre Greenlaw tore his Achilles, yeah.
And C.J. Gardner-Johnson has been really good for them. The new guy, Jalen Carter, you got...
he's a complete game wrecker up front, especially against the Rams. You watch what he did against their interior line. And, he's going to make it a nightmare for you. Fortunately for the Chiefs, you've got Creed Humphrey at center to help you out, who's probably one of the best in the league. But it's a tall task against this Eagles defense. But where I think they've grown the most is in that secondary. Quinyon Mitchell is having an excellent rookie year.
Darius Slay is still really good.
Cooper DeJean has been great, but you're able to replace like James Bradbury from a couple years ago, who had a dreadful Super Bowl. So you made a lot of upgrades there, and again, it's the #1 regular season defense. Zach Baun has been everywhere. There's we've named about every defensive starter and just how good they are, but they also have guys that you can rotate in and out of that keep everybody fresh. And it's going to be, I mean, if the Chiefs win a three-peat, they're going to have to do it through the best defense of the league.
Absolutely, and it's not normal you see a quarterback in the Super Bowl with a season stat line that's like a good college season, 2,900 yards and 18 touchdowns. And that's really, I think, where the deficiency comes from. It's a little bit of a, can they throw if they need to win? They haven't had to all year. We'll see if they can, if the Chiefs can kind of force them into that. But even when they do, Dallas Goedert has been really good.
Yeah, and it's kind of differing styles here because this year throughout the whole league, possessions are down. So it's kind of who has the ball the most, how you can efficiently score touchdowns.
Every game must be 13-10 slop.
It must, but the Eagles have been really good at doing that on the ground. They default to the run more than most other teams, and behind a dominant offensive line, it makes sense. For the Chiefs, they like to keep the ball in Mahomes' hand, navigate a lot of play action, get him out on the move, and we saw that work flawlessly against the Buffalo Bills. But again, they've got a recipe. It's worked 2 years in a row. Mahomes, Kelsey, Andy Reid, they're all seeking their 3rd Super Bowl victory in a row. First time in the Super Bowl era that we might be seeing a three-peat. And again, you've got the chef and you've got your mad scientist. I think these are going to be two of the keys to watch for the game. The offensive and defensive play caller, of course, Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo. JP, what do you think? How do you think Spags is going to have to navigate the challenge that Jalen Hurts provides with his legs? What do you think he's going to try and counter that with?
Well, I think they're going to spy him a lot. The Chiefs have enough talent to where you can kind of take a guy out of pass coverage and make him more of a designated watch Jalen Hurts, don't get beat by Jalen Hurts type. And when it comes to slowing Hurts on the ground, you have to contain Saquon Barkley. And Spags has a really good history of shutting down dominant running games in the postseason. We've seen it when he was the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants when he won a Super Bowl there.
He's the winningest defensive coordinator ever. He's won 4 Super Bowls. He's going for 5.
My goodness. It's really something special there. And I really love it. He's the one saving grace, I think, on this Chiefs team. Other than, for me, Drew Tranquill and DeAndre Hopkins getting a Super Bowl ring would be pretty cool.
He's a really cool guy. I think the Chiefs, while they definitely are a little bit annoying in the spotlight, I think watching them play football, just their ability to win football games, at some point you've got to just say, man, they're just better at winning. And that's just what they've done. They've won 17 straight one-score games.
They can't keep getting away with it, but they do.
But they do every single time. And in the playoffs, you're talking about one of the greatest playoff postseason quarterbacks ever in Patrick Mahomes, who's not even 30 already.
He's no Joe Flacco, but
he's 7 for 7 in playoff drives when trailing by 7 or fewer with under a minute left to go. So when back's against the wall, I mean, it's you go to this guy and it works every time. Literally every time so far. It has worked, which is just ridiculous. He's the second most fourth quarter comebacks in postseason history, of course, to Brady. He's 8-0 against Vic Fangio. So this is a big matchup for Eagles defensive coordinator, who has, again, really been awesome. Just can't get through Mahomes and Andy Reid. And really, that's what the rest of the league is trying to figure out. But again, it's clashing styles. It's a dynasty versus the Eagles trying to cement themselves as maybe a dynasty to build off of with all their young pieces on defense. JP, I think this one's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I think one of the things people are kind of underlooking is that if this comes down to a kick, you got Harrison Butker, who was injured and he struggled in the playoffs, and then Jake Elliott is 1 of 7 on field goals of 50 yards or more. So it could be a laugher there. But we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We've got a whole slate of professional and college basketball coming up right after this break.
And yesterday marked the end of the NBA trade deadline, one of the wildest we've ever seen to start. We're gonna start with your obvious headliner, one of the largest and most unexpected trades in league history. Sent Luka Doncic to the Lakers. JP, what do you make of this, man?
I think it's cosmic vengeance from the Lakers for David Stern blocking the Chris Paul trade. back in the olden days with the New Orleans Hornets. I mean, this is unprecedented. The Lakers, their fans are like, your best player is going to play for us. And everyone's like, no. And they're always right. They have literally had a star player on their team for the last 70 years. How is that possible?
I just don't get what the Mavericks are doing here. Again,
dude, something has to happen to Nico Harrison.
I mean, if the Mavs win a title this year, maybe you would consider that worth it. You probably would. But I think you've made yourself a little bit worse off to go try and win a title this year. I mean, Luka Doncic is a guy in the postseason who you can just give the ball to, and he'll magically win you a series. I mean, he led them to the finals last year.
Oh, but he likes to have a beer every now and again, and he eats chicken tenders. Oh, well, even if he does weigh 270 pounds, which I don't think is true.
I don't think that's true, and he also has played the most minutes of his career last year. And you hear about the Mavericks taking away his personal training staff.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, no, he's the healthiest he's ever been. He just led us to a finals.
I just didn't like him. Why did they not like him? What in the world?
But also, the way this trade went down, the more you learn about it, the more you're like, what is Nico Harrison doing? Are the Mavericks evil? Probably yes.
Do the Lakers have a demonic presence?
But it was like if we were both NBA GMs and I was like, JP, don't tell anybody, but I'd really like to have Luka Doncic on my team. And you were like, yeah, I'm not gonna see what I could possibly get for this massive superstar who's only 25. He's only made an All-Star game every year, that he's healthy, and they just give away their future. And I think, we'll move on after this. I think it really speaks to GM/ownership in sports, because Nico Harrison, when asked about what the future looks like, he said it looks like 3 or 4 years. Does he realize time goes on after that? You can't just, I understand selling out to try and win a title, but you've made yourself not only worse in the meantime, you've made yourself worse in the future, and you're just trying to do it to protect your job. Buddy, you are going down.
And the thing is that they didn't make another trade. They're literally just relying on Kyrie Irving.
Who's had a really good year.
Yeah, but he can't carry the load. Like, when Luka was out in the playoffs, he could not carry the load. Old Klay Thompson, oh my God. Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively. They had Jalen Brunson, Kristaps Porzingis, and Luka Doncic, and it turned into this. They did not even get a first-round pick. They got one. They don't have their own. They spent more. They gave up their own first-round pick for P.J. Washington. They gave it up for another guy. This is absurd. This is ridiculous. I just can't. I can't fathom this is real.
It doesn't feel real, and we haven't seen AD or Luka in their respective new uniforms yet, JP. But it's not the only trade been made.
No, it's not. That kind of opened the floodgates for everything.
It really did. Another 3-team trade sent Zach LaVine and De'Aaron Fox to new destinations as well. This one I think was a lot more expected. We heard about this a little bit before the deadline. The Kings, you've been wondering if they were going to make this move. I think the big winner here has got to be the Spurs.
Oh my God, yeah. It's because, we
know who the big loser is.
The Kings get off a player that he had no intention of ever re-signing in Sacramento. As tough as that is to kind of swallow for them. They move off of Kevin Huerter, and Zach LaVine's having a really good year, and they kind of got a wealth of draft picks and from the Spurs and the Chicago Bulls. The biggest loser here, my God, what is wrong with the Chicago Bulls?
Their GM and Mavs GM Nico Harrison, they are really trying their best to outdo each other in being absolutely unjust. The Bulls are just holding on to Zach LaVine and Vooch till the end of time. And now you wonder why you get diminishing returns. It's because, you've waited so long to trade Zach LaVine. People have been clamoring for this for, multiple seasons now?
Yeah.
And it finally happens, and you get Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones, and Zach Collins out of it. That feels like a slap in the face to Bulls fans. At least you had Michael Jordan to win you a couple chips 30 years ago. JP, but if you were our age, the only thing you've seen the Bulls do was Derrick Rose's rookie year. You saw him tear his ACL, and really that's been the end of the Bulls being good.
They hit a buzzer beater against the Cavs one time after that.
That was cool.
I couldn't even tell you what year it was, but, it happened. We can't deny it. But it's very it's very unfortunate because, they had that, the big three, and everyone's kind of like, I just don't think that's enough. Not only was it not enough, you got nothing for it. DeMar DeRozan off to Sacramento. They got nothing really in return. They sent off Alex Caruso. They got Josh Giddey. And then you send off Zach LaVine, who was the best of all of them. And
it certainly seems like a team that just doesn't know what they have in their hands.
No.
And they also don't know at all when to blow it up. Because really, that's a hard game to play, but they really should have gotten rid of him a lot earlier. But we'll move on because the rumors about Jimmy Butler to the Warriors finally rang true. We heard about it saying, well, he's not going to sign an extension, but he actually did. He'll be playing in Golden State for at least the next 2 seasons for a hefty chunk of cheddar, JP.
yeah,
My goodness.
good Lord. It's 2 years, $120 million. Stephen A. Smith was asked, he was like, does this change how you feel about the Warriors in the West? And what did he say, Spencer? He was like, hey, I feel the same that I did yesterday.
Yeah,
no. This just doesn't. Jimmy Butler wasn't even having that great a year. He was having 17 points a game, not great efficiency. Steph is shooting tour dates, 12 of 35 and stuff, or 12 of 31, stuff like that.
It's just not a great team.
No, it's not. They're not even in a play-in spot right now, and it's you go all in, you lose Andrew Wiggins, who's having a better year than I think Jimmy Butler was. I think the Heat got a lot better. They kind of got out from under the microscope of the Jimmy Butler experience.
Plus, it felt like they were slipping a little bit. You were holding on to the old star who doesn't want to play for you. You flip it around, you get a lot of good young talent. Davion Mitchell's an excellent defender. He might slot in off the bench somewhere. For the Warriors, I don't hate this move because I think it's the principle of it. You're finally getting somebody to pair up with Steph. It just feels way too late. For some reason, you didn't make this move a couple years ago. Not saying it had to be Jimmy, but you don't pair Steph up with another superstar. And now, as his production starts to fall off a little bit, you bring in Jimmy Butler, who's 35, and you kind of pigeonhole yourself because Jimmy, Draymond, and Steph are now making 85% of your money.
Oh my God, that's there's no way you can win now.
You have to hope for a playoff miracle, pretty much. And
the
again,
We Believe Warriors.
You've got 2 really good playoff performers in Steph and Jimmy. Not sure if it's going to be enough.
No, and then some other trades that happened.
A real winner of the deadline, JP. Is it our team?
Well, I was going to just quick touch on some of these ones with the Bucks sending Chris Middleton to the soulless wasteland that is the Washington Wizards in exchange for Kyle Kuzma, who's not even better than Chris Middleton this year.
It's a horrible trade for the Bucks.
That's bizarre.
And that's, real quick, no loyalty for Chris Middleton. You're talking about, you wouldn't expect it. Chris Middleton is a franchise great for the Bucks.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't think about it. 12 years with them, is he second or third in points? He's really up there. You wouldn't expect it, but that's how you treat a guy. You just ship him off to Washington for Kyle Kuzma.
Kyle Kuzma, man.
It's a downgrade.
It's literally only, you could say it's a money move, but Kyle Kuzma also makes a ton of money. It just doesn't make any sense. The Wizards got Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, who was a pretty good young guy for the Bucks.
It did make sense the Bucks drafted him. He was the project guard, and the Bucks are all aging and trying to win now. It's whatever that organization is doing doesn't make sense. And
they also sent DeLon Wright, who's still in the NBA. I didn't know this, to the Knicks. I saw someone say, how will Tibbs utilize DeLon Wright? And someone was like, he'll get him water when he's thirsty, perhaps.
Especially knowing Tibbs. He's not going
we
that
got
deep.
Landry Shamet. But then kind of the last big one is maybe one of the bigger head scratchers. It's the Toronto Raptors trading for Brandon Ingram. They're 6 games out of a play-in spot. They give up Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first and a second. Brandon Ingram's good. This is a play-in super team.
Yeah, why you give up a first is the head scratcher because, I understand if you want to, go get a nice shooting guard. I think Brandon Ingram's a solid player. He's not gonna make the Raptors anything other than what they are, and that's just
unless
not a
Scotty
great
Barnes
team.
and R.J. Barrett become the truth, and
but you get Brandon Ingram who takes the ball out of Scotty Barnes and R.J. Barrett's hands. You bring in an older guy, you give up a first rounder to do it, and really it makes no sense. I think the Pelicans were smart in getting what they could for BI because clearly him and Zion weren't working.
This was the last chance I think they ever had to get some kind of value, but it's odd. But guess what? Maybe the true winners in this trade deadline.
Was it Buzz City?
Was it Buzz? The Charlotte Hornets, they took a huge advantage 2 years in a row that this new front office has gone all in on the trade deadline, maximizing the draft capital and bringing in new players to at least give shots. They did with Trey Mann last year, and they made two really big ones with two West Coast powers in the LA Lakers and the Phoenix Suns. Let's take a quick look at what they did with the Lakers. This was the biggest one. It happened in the dead of night. People are kind of really torn on this, Spencer.
I think it's a win-win trade. I mean, the Lakers go out and get that big man they needed since moving on to Anthony Davis. They get Mark Williams, who's incredibly tall. He's a really great offensive center. He's great at catching lobs and rolling to the rim. Where he needs to show a little bit more growth is in the effort column and in the defensive column, which is what the Lakers kind of needed, was a defensive anchor. They're not quite getting that, but they might have like a top 2 offense in basketball now with him.
I mean, they're the Showtime Lakers, I think, are really back.
But what do the Hornets get out of all this?
Well, they got the rookie Dalton Knecht from the University of Tennessee. We talked about him a lot last year as a cold white boy for the Volunteers. But on top of that, they also got Cam Reddish. These are two guys who can take the ball out of Daquan Jeffries and like Nick Smith Jr.'s hands on offense.
And if you've never heard those names before, you must not be Hornets fans. Because
Charles Lee's system where they're going to jack up a lot of threes. You'd rather have someone like, I hate to say this from the bottom of my soul, at least Cam Reddish, he's not afraid to shoot the ball. Dalton Knecht is a rookie who can make the 3 ball, and, you give your offense just a lot more room to grow, man.
And you get a pick out of it.
Yeah, and you got a pick. You got the 2023 or 2031 first and the 2030 swap. I don't really know how pick swap. The NBA is very odd.
They'd have to. I think the Hornets would have to finish with a better record than the Lakers to get their swap. So that might not happen. But again, I don't think you're really worried about that because you got what you wanted. Really.
Exactly, and now they can sign Moussa Diabate, who is kind of the opposite of Mark Williams.
They still need to cut one more person, but he's maxing out his 2-way. And
goodbye, Daquan Jeffries.
No, he's probably the man to go. I mean, it's
tough, and for the Hornets, it's just about getting to the end of this year, seeing what you got out of some guys. We're seeing a lot of Josh Green. Will LaMelo come back? They'll probably shut him down at some point. But the second trade saw, I don't want to say a franchise mainstay, but Cody Martin is gone.
I mean, he really
he's been around the block in Uptown. Cody Martin, Vasilije Micic, and a 2026 second rounder for Yusuf Nurkic and a 2026 first rounder that, Spencer, I don't think I've seen any protections on.
No,
I think this is an unprotected first-round pick for a Suns team that might not be very good in the coming years. But the Hornets
turn into something. I mean, I'm loving what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, they're just getting value. These are guys they're taking on contracts and getting value out of it. The Suns had to give up a first-rounder to move Nurkic, and he's a guy who gives you 10 and 10 a night. He plays tough on defense. He's kind of like an anti-Mark Williams, where he's going to foul a lot, but it comes from a good place. He really wants to get after it.
And he wasn't working on the Suns, really expected a trade. And I think, you've just got to like the Hornets cashing in, getting rid of some older guys. Nurkic isn't too young himself, but you're getting rid of some guys who really weren't making the team all that much better. You get a pick out of it. And now really it's about that timelines we were talking about. Now the Hornets have a lot of picks where they can get younger, better talent, and match with the trajectory of their stars in LaMelo and Brandon Miller. It makes a lot of sense, but that's not all for basketball. In college hoops, an SEC showdown on Saturday between number 1 Auburn and number 6 Florida. JP in the jungle, this one is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. It got bumped to ESPN2 for the Lakers when Luka Doncic isn't even going to play, which is really weird. But it's taking place in Auburn. So the undisputed number one team in the country against one of the hottest teams in the nation, Florida, who started the year off a little shaky. They were kind of inconsistent, but they've really turned it on as of late. As we look now at the Auburn Tigers, who have perhaps the best player in the college basketball, the Broom Closet. He's going to sweep you off the floor, man. Over 18 a game, 11 rebounds. He leads the team in points, rebounds, assists, and blocks per game. Nearly 3 blocks a game. I mean, my goodness, their one loss on the season was at Duke, the second best team in college basketball. They have the best offense in the history of KenPom. They've scored 80-plus in 16 of their 22 games. Spencer, I mean, this is the best Auburn basketball team of all time, I think.
It certainly looks that way. And it was hard to know what to make of this team when you found out in November they were getting in a fight on the airplane. And
yeah.
I was like, well, it might just fall apart at the seams. Nope. They are just kicking everybody in the shins and just jamming on them. I mean, this is a supremely talented team. They've got a lot of really good freshmen, like Tahad Pettiford is awesome. He's a really good shooter. But again, Janai Broome he does it all for this team.
Yeah, he does. And then they got the super senior Chad Baker-Mazara, who leads the team with over a steal per game, shoots about 40% from three. That's kind of the big difference with this Auburn team than previous ones is their ability to make jump shots when it matters most. You know, they haven't had this since like Chuma Okeke and Bryce Brown,
wow.
That team that went to the Final Four. And so I'm excited. I mean, this team is awesome. But lining up across from them on Saturday is going to be the Florida Gators, who are kind of back in business for the first time in a long time. They're on a Gator roll, if you will. Their best start since 2014.
He's a clever guy.
They're number 5 in KenPom. They've raced as high as number 5 in the AP poll, which is their highest in 8 years. Walter Clayton Jr. missed their game against Vanderbilt. They didn't miss a beat. They blew out the Commodores. We'll see if he's a go for tomorrow. Right now, he's just kind of questionable. They've just gotten it done throughout the entire year. You can see they're out of conference wins. Florida State, Wake, Arizona State, Virginia, UNC. A lot of those games weren't close. Alex Condon, he's really filled in with the loss of Micah Handlogton. Spencer, talk about the big man for Florida.
Florida does a really good job of boxing out and just pressuring the low block. Condon's done a really good job, especially filling in for those guys, but they also do a good job of stretching the floor on offense. They make them really hard to guard. They're a really good three-point shooting team, especially when you look at a guy like Walter Clayton. So when you give him a little bit more space to work with, you can work off the pick and roll. He's not afraid to let it fly, and he shoots at a pretty good clip, 36%, but when he gets hot, he's one of the most dangerous guys in basketball.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle of whose defense can impose their will first. Florida is 4th in opponent effective field goal percentage and 4th in three-point percentage, while Auburn is top 10 in both, but they're also 3rd in block percentage. So we're going to see, can Florida get down low? Because the Gators shoot over almost 60% from 2. They get to the rim really well. They get the ball down to Condon, but Janai Broome is going to be there, and Auburn's defense is going to pack the paint. But that's not the only big-time basketball game. On Saturday, the ACC has a showstopper, perhaps the game of the year in the conference. The dominant Duke Blue Devils are going to Little John Coliseum tomorrow to face off against the Clemson Tigers, who, Spencer, they might even be better than they were a year ago. It's a battle for that top spot in the ACC. Duke comedically leads the all-time series, but you look there, Spencer, Little John's been a house of horrors over the last decade for the Blue Devils.
And it is a really tough place to play. And you look, we talked about it yesterday, those Clemson men's basketball fans, really diehard guys. I mean, they get in, they get loud, and Brad Brownell has this team, again, maybe punching to new heights this year. Not in the AP top 25, but really good. They're 2nd in the ACC right behind Duke. And this is another really good team. It should be a great game. JP, is it Duke first?
I believe it is Clemson. We made this last night. It is. So we have, it's the Elite Encore. They're trying to reload after that Elite 8 run for the ages. People kind of forgot at the end of the year after how good of a run Clemson went on. They went just 11-9 in conference play. They struggled heavily for a large portion of the season. Then they flipped the switch. This team's a lot different. They have been on it all year long. They're having a better conference season. They're looking for their first ACC regular season title since 1990. And they're led by committee. You got Chase Hunter, the senior, Ian Shefflin filling in for P.J. Hall. And then they went in the portal and got some really good guys. Victor Locken from Cincinnati and Jaden Zachary from Boston College have really kind of helped this team out to a much better defense than a year ago.
Yeah, and we talked about it last year. Ian Shefflin is the ultimate glue guy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's red in the face every time you see him from diving after loose balls, gets after it defensively. He's an excellent rebounder. But Chase Hunter on the offensive end, he's a great scorer. Against South Carolina, one of the games the Gamecocks miraculously won, he was hitting heroic shots to push that game to OT. Just great individual shot making.
Yeah, 3 of Clemson's 5 losses have come in overtime. They suffered back-to-back OT losses to Memphis and South Carolina. on the road, and then, they kind of flip it around. They go on a huge run, but they lost in triple overtime to a pesky Georgia Tech team on Tuesday. But they're a team, man, they just shoot the ball really well. They don't really get their shots blocked. They're going up against, well, I kind of reused it, the main event. Cooper Flagg.
It's hard not to.
Future Charlotte Hornet. They're pursuing perfection, man. They're looking to become the first team to go undefeated in ACC play since the Duke Blue Devils in 1999. I mean,
I figured that was coming.
Yeah, they're doing things that no one's done since Duke. This team is just unreal.
Especially watching this team against UNC. I mean, the first half display they put up against my lowly Tar Heels was nothing short of dominant. I mean, they were unbelievable on the defensive end. Cooper Flagg is an excellent passer. Really, in that game, showed a lot of that. But on the defensive end, he swarms you. I think it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how Clemson handles, because Duke switched everything in that first half against UNC, really the whole game. And Tar Heels had no answer. What is Clemson going to be able to do? Because Duke just has that length and versatility that makes it really hard to get by them. And, are you going to have to step back and make some tough threes? Carolina certainly couldn't. It's going to be up to Clemson to make some tough shots or find a way around getting past this defense.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice battle because John Shire is such a new head coach. Now with, Leonard Hamilton stepping down at the end of the year, the longest tenured head coach in the ACC, Brad Brownell in Clemson. He's done an excellent job there. They're in their best stretch of success ever. But we're going from a team that's really hot to a team that's really cold, Spencer.
That's right, and it's really our question of the day. We're talking about the Iowa State Cyclones. Are they spinning out of control, or is it just a bit of a rough stretch from them, JP? This is a really good team on the season. They're 17-5, 7-4 in the Big 12, which brings them at fourth. They've got 5 players averaging double figures, so they spread the wealth a really good bit. But they've lost 3 straight games, and some of them, 2 of them have been beatdowns. One of them to Arizona. They got pushed to OT via that half-court lead from Caleb Love. So I think that one you could forgive a little bit. But losing at home to Kansas State by 19 is not a way you want to go.
No, we mentioned the Wildcats as a team that was really struggling, and they've turned it on as of late.
They watched the episode and
were like, it's true. But for Iowa State, it's just, they're not hitting the shots they should, and when it comes down to it, it's tough to win consistently. They were getting -- overall votes. They were a threat for a 1 seed. Now they're looking more like a 2 or a 3, or even, if they keep losing, a 4. And it's odd because it's a Big 12 that's not as strong as we've seen in recent years. It's still very good, but the bottom of the conference.
I would say top heavy for sure.
Yeah, it's very top heavy. And that's the problem with a lot of these conferences nowadays, where there's just too many darn teams. It's just, there's a lot of good teams, but there's a lot of schlock as well. And so it's about finding that balance. But for Iowa State, it's a long season, but you'd rather go cold in January and February than March.
That's right. Do you think they're going to turn it around?
I think they do.
I think so too.
They're too good a team. They were too good for too long to just forget how to win basketball games.
Yeah, and really, I think it's just, Kansas State shot 50% from the field and almost 50% from 3 in their win. And then Kansas, playing at Allen Fieldhouse, they got held to 30% shooting from the field and 14% from 3. So again, it's a tough place to play. I think they're going to bounce back. They've got an easy stretch of games. You've got teams like Colorado, Utah, who just aren't as good this year, UCF coming up.
Yeah.
So I think they'll get right and still be a threat come tournament time. But again, that's all we've got for you right now. But we'll be right back after the break with this week's Pick'ems to wrap up this episode of Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome back to BDL Pick'ems. I'm sitting at 12-13 on the season, while Spencer is climbing with a 16-9 record. We're going to scroll through some games real quick, starting with the Super Bowl. Spencer, Eagles, Chiefs, who do you got?
I think the Chiefs are going to three-peat, and again, I know it's a safe bet. I just wouldn't pick against them. You talk about their clutch record. Seemingly, they don't lose these one-score games. They've won 17 in a row. I think they're going to have the ability to keep it close, and I think they've got 2 major advantages. I think they've got an advantage at quarterback, and I think they've got an advantage coaching-wise. I think Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo are the 2 best in the business, and they're on the same team, and that's really unfortunate for every other team. I think Vic Fangio is great, but I'm really curious as to how Kellen Moore is going to deal with Steve Spagnuolo's defense. That's where I have my questions, because I think it's going to take a lot of hurts to be able to beat this team. I think Saquon is great, obviously. Offensive Player of the Year, really close to breaking Terrell Davis's regular season and postseason, total yardage record. He just needs 30 yards. It's going to be on Saquon's birthday, but I'm not quite sure if you're just going to be able to default to the running game like you have all year. It's going to have to be a lot of passes that get it done, and frankly, the Chiefs are a lot better defense than the Commanders. And I think,
the Chiefs aren't going to fumble the ball like a million times.
I hope for Hurts' sake that he at least plays a good game, and it's a good competitive football game. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it. So I've got the Chiefs in a close one. That's how they win football games. JP, who you got?
I've been flipping and flopping on this one. I really don't. It's just going to come down to, I need to wrap this up so we can move on to talk about some basketball here.
That's true.
And I think, truthfully, I just think the Eagles get it done somehow, some way. Some tragic moment happens and the Eagles win a Super Bowl. We'll move on now to women's basketball.
You're absolutely thrilled about that.
I'm not, no, but we got a triumvirate of titular matchups on Sunday. It is an excellent day for women's basketball. And starting it off, it's number 7 Southern Cal coming off a loss to Iowa versus number 8 Ohio State.
I wisely predicted that, but I do think Southern Cal bounces back at home against Iowa State, who's a good team. We saw them fall against UCLA pretty heavily as the Bruins are just kind of beating everybody right now.
Yeah.
But I think the Trojans get it done at home, and I think Juju probably has a really good game to push them over the top.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Southern Cal, too. I think they take care of business at home against Ohio State, and then it'll be a nice little bounce-back performance for them. Then we move on to an ACC matchup with I still can't believe this is an ACC game. It's number 3 Notre Dame versus number 19 Cal.
We watched yesterday. Notre Dame beat Stanford by about 1 million. They were. It was like 20-13 at one point, and then you look up and it's 44-13.
And it was like 74-24. It was like, oh my God.
This team can go on runs really quick. They've got great guard play. I think the Irish get it done at home.
I do too. I think it'll be a good game. It'll be nice to see Cal. Kind of doing something. I don't think they've ever been this good in women's basketball before. So that's fun, as they rise, Stanford falls.
Program.
Yeah, and then, our last one is the biggest game of the day. It's number 4 Texas hosting number 2 South Carolina.
I'm going to go with the Gamecocks here. I know it's on the road against a Texas team that's actually been good the last couple of years. I just think South Carolina has too much firepower. Again, they get it done in too many different areas. I think Texas would have to really step up in all of them to stifle South Carolina. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Joyce Edwards gets it done on the low block. Full Wiley in the guard spot. I just think the Gamecocks are too good.
Yeah, I agree. I think South Carolina wins. I think it'll be tough. Texas is a very good team. I think they have just like one loss on the season. It's in overtime on the road against Notre Dame in the ACC-SEC Challenge. They've been dominant ever since, so they're a fun team to watch. And we'll move on to the men's now.
We sure will, and we'll run through, 6 games we've got for you, starting off with a Big East matchup. It's number 19 UConn hosting number 12 St. John's. JP?
We talked about St. John's a lot last week, and I think they keep it rolling with a big road victory against UConn. UConn got a win against Marquette a week ago. They're really looking good in terms of tournament position. I think St. John's, man, they're just this year's Catholic Cinderella.
I tell you what, I never would have imagined saying that, but I am also going to go with the Johnnies. The way they play defense and the intensity that they bring to basketball games reminds me of UConn. This is just a really good team. I think this game's going to be really fun as UConn's really finding their stride here. I think the Big East has got 4 really good teams. We're going to talk about the other 2, but I'm going with St. John's as well. It's Creighton hosts number 11 Marquette. I think these are the other 2 best Big East teams. JP, in this great matchup.
Creighton is super hot right now. They beat Georgetown at the buzzer last week. They've took care of business against Villanova. I don't think anyone in the country is shooting better than Stephen Ashworth is right now. They're hitting.
If you can bank in a corner 3, that's just.
Yeah, he's feeling it all types of ways. And I think they continue to ride the hot hand. They upset Marquette, really solidify themselves as a tournament team.
I'm also going to go with Creighton. It feels like me and JP are having the same picks, but again, really, Creighton's a good home team as well.
Yeah.
That place gets rocking. I think Marquette's going to struggle a little bit, and Creighton, again, I think they're going to ride this hot wave, and I think there's going to be 4 really good Big East teams come tournament time. Moving on to some SEC ball, we've got number 15 Mizzou hosting number 10 Texas A&M. Mizzou just keeps on climbing. I'm going with the Tigers in this one. Who you got?
I am too. Mizzou, over the last month, according to analytics, only one team has played better than Missouri. Duke. And not even Auburn somehow. Missouri has been dominant. They've been great. And they're playing a team that can't shoot the rock at home. Give me the Tigers.
Also, I mean, we've got to talk about it slightly. This turnaround from Dennis Gates going winless last year in SEC play to a top 15 team, nothing short of miraculous. He deserves a ton of credit. We think the Tigers roll, and I guess we're either going 10-0 or 0-10 this week if we have the same picks.
And don't worry, we have more Tigers to discuss.
That's right. Number 1, Auburn hosts number 6, Florida, in an SEC thriller. JP, who you got down in the Plains?
You know, I've been picking Auburn to win games the last however many years with Bruce Pearl. I'm not stopping now. Janai Broom's one of the best players I've ever seen played the game of college basketball, and I think they ride him to a great victory at home over Florida.
Yeah, I think the Tigers get it done too. Again, that's a really, really tough place to play, but their offense, I think it's going to be too much for Florida. I think it's going to be a good, close SEC game, but I think Auburn just seals it late because, you know, they've got a guy they can go to who I think is just better than Florida's guys, you know, come crunch time. Moving on to a little SEC ball, it's Clemson hosting number 2 Duke, and again, Clemson, not ranked, but it's they could be on the verge here. Who you got?
I think that I've already picked 2 Tigers. I may as well go 3. I think they get some. You know, we've seen it against Duke in their losses and their close games. When opponents shoot 3, when they shoot more than 20-something threes, they start making them. You know, Duke's defense is good, but if you get the volume up, you can get the shots to fall. You can get good looks against this Duke defense. I think Clemson does a really good job of getting those looks. I think Chase Hunter, Dylan Hunter, Victor Locken can spread the floor. He can shoot really well from deep. I think they get it done at home, catapult themselves back into the top 25.
In a battle of, my 2 most hated rivals, Clemson and Duke, I'm going to go with Duke here. I just think they're the better team. I think they really showed a lot of promise. Again, they're the number 2 team in the country. It's just they are just that good. But against UNC, it was dominant, man. It was brutal. It was brutal to watch, and they can just put teams in a chokehold. And I think if they get started early behind Cooper Flagg and get out and running, it's going to be a long day for the Tigers. But I think Clemson will keep it close. I've got Duke taking it, though. And our final matchup, it's another SEC basketball game. It's Arkansas hosting number 3 Alabama. Who you got in this one? Arkansas kind of trending upwards a little bit. A big win last week.
we just talked about them. They were really treading water. They've won 3 in a row, I think, since then. I think that comes to an emphatic and violent end against Alabama. I mean, Jesus, I don't know, man. They got them at home. But no amount of Tyson chicken fingers in the world can save the Razorbacks on Saturday. No,
I think the Tide's going to have too much. Unless they really run dry shooting, I think that'd be the only way they fall here. I think they're just better than Arkansas, and that makes sense in Cal's first year. I think Alabama gets it done. I mean, they're a top 3 team in the nation, JP. Doesn't make sense for them to lose. I'll say that now, though. Lose by 30. But that's going to do it for this episode of Ball Don't Lie. So be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok at SGTV at USC.
To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtv@usc.com. For SGTV, I'm JP Barry.
And I'm Spencer Ball. From all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend, Carolina.
Forever to thee. It is so hot.